All right, guys, welcome back to episode 6 of the Lift Lounge podcast. Today, we are going to be running through how to successfully end and transition out of a dieting period.
Amazing.
How exciting. I've just wrapped up my diet, so this is very well timed for us to go through this. But we're going to run through all the main topics here. I'm going to take the lead a little bit on this podcast, and then we're going to put Leon in the hot seat a wee bit and get his opinions on stuff as well. More of a natural response from Leon, should we say. So let's dive into it. I think the intro should be surrounding that not everyone is a bodybuilder. So a lot of people will come out of like a dieting phase or a prep or a photo shoot. And if you're typically more so into that bodybuilding style approach, you can pretty much just go straight back into a gaining phase and you can think about increasing food and things like that. So it's a very easy route to take. However, that's not the case for lifestyle clients and people that actually want to like maintain a leaner physique year round and maintain the results that they've worked hard for through their dieting phase. So let's go through some of the main reasons for like that post-diet struggle, and let's get some of your thoughts on that.
Okay. You want me to start with what I think then?
Yeah, let's run through.
You know, for the post-diet struggle, the first thing that is always going to come to mind is you've been restricted on food for such a long time that you just want to eat. And it's all too easy to undo weeks of work in a single night, in my opinion. Like having your discipline carry on through into the week. I mean, even if we think about once you've done something that hard, you'll have some kind of reward. So for yourself, you had that meal out, but for others, that could turn into a weekend, a week, and then they take a week off, and then they're back to square one. Maybe 4 or 5 weeks damage done. Obviously, a lot of water weight. You're not going to gain that much fat, but it slows down the process. So having that control to know whatever I do tonight, work begins again tomorrow. Mindset to it.
Yeah, and I think that when people kind of get to maybe the last week or they tick off that goal, whether it be like a show or a photo shoot or they're ready for an event, they've got like a wedding or something, they're looking their best, they think, right, okay, the hard work is finished and they're very quick to drop their goals out. And I think that's what actually leads to the struggles. So all of a sudden your diet's kind of finished, cardio is irrelevant now. You know, you're eating more food, you're not focusing on things like your steps anymore because in your head you've achieved the look that you want to achieve. So now you can start to drop all those variables out, and then that's when things can slowly hit the fan, really, like you said. And you know, a couple of days can maybe turn into a week, turn into a month. Before you know it, a couple months down the line, you're back to where you were before. So with those struggles, breaking them into some topics to look at: cravings, hunger, lack of direction, your structure fades away, and your routines and your habits slowly disappear. So let's dive into like, why do these struggles actually happen? Like, why do these struggles take place? And diving into that, I think it's because in terms of direction on where to take that, like
why it's happening, why the struggles are coming?
Yeah. The main thing I can think of is structure and routines disappear.
Yeah. In fact, that's amazing, because I think when you're dieting, your schedule is never more full in terms of fitness. So you're doing, let's say on average, maybe at the end of someone's cut, they're on 150 minutes of cardio plus. That requires time planning. You know, you're not doing that in one morning. You're doing that across the week. Let's say that's 30 minutes, 5 sessions, 150 minutes. That requires time and planning, and that effort you're putting into your time management means your week is getting full, right? Then you've got 12, maybe 10,000 plus steps to do each day. That requires time. Then you're doing your session, you've got your normal day job or whatever else you do. Your days are full. You have all your time is used up, burning calories, eating these meals, planning these meals, and doing your normal work. So as soon as your diet ends, you've reached that end goal, you've reached that look, you're now in a gaining phase or in that post-diet phase. A lot of these targets are gone and you've all this time to eat and think about food and do other things. So having that no structure and no routine really that you have to adhere to, because if you think when you're at peak bulk or peak gaining phase, for most people, your schedule doesn't look that full. You know, the most exciting thing you get up to is going to the gym to train for an hour and a half. It's not like you've got the cardio to do, the steps to do, or the lack of eating to do, you know? So, you know, your structure is just completely different, and it's a big switch up, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's that lack of time, because most people eat when they get bored. Like, most people aren't focused on food when they're super busy. And when you're dieting, that's exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to make yourself busy so you're not focusing on food. And a lot of people will say they become really, really productive when they're in a dieting phase, because you're waking up and you're thinking, right, I need to be productive and keep myself occupied, because I know that I know that in half an hour I'm going to be hungry, an hour I'm going to be hungry. So you know, you quickly fill up your schedule with loads and loads of things to do. But when that drops off, and then you maybe start to get some cravings, you've got more time that comes back in, you spend more time perhaps being bored, so then you start thinking about food. It's a difficult one to manage. So do you want to dive into some tips for people to help with cravings?
Yeah.
Or help people with their cravings?
With cravings, I think this is just something that just came to me there, but people focus a lot on their water intake during their cut. You know, you're trying to drink more water. You know that you could be feeling hungrier if you weren't drinking enough water. So as they finish that diet and routine, they get back into the way things used to be. A lot of things fall out the window, water being one of them. Keeping your water intake high will help alleviate your cravings. Another thing as well would be, I think that maybe we could touch on this in the next point, but like instead of phasing it as going straight into your gaining phase, phasing it as a reverse diet, so that you don't look at it as a time where, right, I'm bulking now, Domino's pizza tonight. You know, I've not had any foods I wanted for 12 weeks. Now I can have Domino's pizza every night because my calories are 3K. No, reverse diet, not just for the fact that you should be gaining weight slowly as you come out, but for the fact that you need someone, or you need something that restricts you, because you have just been restricted for so long, and unfortunately you need to stay restrictive so that you don't, for lack of a better word, fuck up the next 4 weeks.
There's a couple of points there that we could link into. Definitely reverse dieting, something I want to touch on.
Yeah.
Before that, looking at like the cravings. So like you've just spent so much time restricting yourself from having the foods that you know, quote unquote enjoy, the foods that you quote unquote miss. I think you need to actually allow for some of those foods throughout the dieting phase. Because if you restrict yourself for too long and you become so food focused on like a Domino's, like you said there, the second you finish that diet, it's going to be Domino's left, right, and center. And it doesn't need to be like Domino's, it can be anything. But if you completely restrict yourself of all the foods that you enjoy as you're going through that dieting phase, you know, you can bet your bottom dollar that when that dieting phase finishes, you're going to be having every single one of those foods. But if you kept those foods somewhat frequent at a lower dose as you were going through that dieting phase, the cravings for them when you finish are not going to be anywhere near as high. So if you've got like a massive sweet tooth and you love chocolate and you go and you don't have chocolate for 4, 5, 6 months, what's the first thing you do when that diet ends?
Yeah.
You're not going to be having a little bit of chocolate. You're going to be having all of the chocolate. Whereas if you were dieting and you're having just a wee bit of chocolate, still keeping it within your calories, making sure you're in a deficit consistently, by the end of that dieting phase, you're not going to be craving it anywhere near as much as what you would have been taking it completely out. But why do we touch on reverse dieting, like you said there as well? Or do you want to leave that to the next point?
I think it's a good thing to talk about now, because it is, if you think about it, I personally think reverse dieting isn't a great phrase, but it's great for the way you'll mentally think about it, because you'll think of it as a diet. When most people think of a diet, they think of the fat loss journey. They don't think of the gaining weight journey, because a diet is just what you're eating day to day. So a reverse diet, as it suggests, is, for those who don't know, is slowly building back up out of the calories that you're on. So instead of, maybe you got down to 1,800 calories, 2,000 calories, slowly building up, slowly week by week, gaining very small amounts of weight so you don't blow up, because it's just so easy to blow up. You know, your metabolism's through the roof and you're a lot more sensitive to carbs. So I think having that phrased as a reverse diet gives you the mentality, okay, work's not done. I've achieved something really good, but now to keep it here, I'm going to have to work to maintain my physique as I come out of this dieting phase. And the longer you can stay in a better shape, the longer your gaining phase is going to be, the longer the time is going to be before you have to start dieting again. So, just having that bit of discipline. But like you said, keeping in the foods that you enjoy will help. For the average gym goer compared to a bodybuilder, like a bodybuilder is not going to, he's never going to say, or she, that I'm going to eat a huge pizza every night. And maybe they will, but for the average person, keeping in those foods and just tracking it as and when fits your macros, and you're still going to lose weight, or gain weight slowly. It's going to make these huge cravings less of an issue. And I think for most people will realize, like I have a client, Mark, at the minute, he's been having a huge bowl. He's in his last week of his diet, huge bowl of lettuce with chicken, right? But he has enough calories to eat other things that he wants, and he has done the calorie banking, maybe tries having a kebab or something at the weekend, but he always tends to regret it because it's a lot of calories he's had to reduce during the week. And then after eating it, he's realized that the craving wasn't as satisfying to, see that through, fulfill it. Afterwards, he's like, right, well, I've just ate that there, but technically I could have had like an extra 2 meals of what I usually eat if I just ate that instead.
Very underwhelmed.
Yeah. But that's something you have to experience. You have to experience that, okay, Domino's pizza, the smallest one, like 1,200 calories?
Yeah.
Something like that. When you're dieting, that could be half your calories for the day. Yeah. And you eat that, you've been waiting all day to eat that. After you finish it, you realize, right, that took me 8 minutes to eat. And, well, for some, me anyway. And then after you're like, right, well, I am a wee bit full, but I feel a bit shit.
Yeah, and I think post-dieting, like, it's important maybe to give yourself a couple of days off and enjoy these foods. Like, me and you aren't saying, you don't take any time off.
It would obviously be ideal if you just did it perfectly, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You if you want to have the best, perfect physique, absolute ideal. But it's just not sustainable for most people. Even us. I mean, what were the cravings you were having? Weren't you wanting sausage rolls and stuff?
Well, that's exactly
have you even ate any of them recently?
That's exactly what I was going to touch on. I gave myself a couple of days post photo shoot just to enjoy foods that I hadn't had in ages. So I took a couple of days off. I got it out of my system. Because I got it out of my system, I could then continue with a more efficient approach after that. Like, yes, balance is super, super important. Having a couple of days off, but then having a place or someone on your case to say, right, okay, you've had your couple of days off, time to get back on plan, time to set the new goal and then push towards that. Yeah. Or else those couple of days are going to turn into a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Yeah. But on the reverse dieting topic, I kind of like to explain this to people as like, just think about it as like energy in, energy out. Like, post dieting, you're going to be pretty responsive. Even a little bit of food is going to be making you feel a lot better because the amount of food that you were on previously is probably not going to be that much. So if you can go from pretty little food, introducing even like a few hundred calories should be making you feel a lot better, right? So then try and take that food, all that couple hundred calories is energy. So try and take that and use that energy across your training and across your expenditure variables. So if you can tell yourself that, okay, I'm putting a couple hundred calories extra in, this is going to be making me feel a lot better. Therefore, I'm going to go into the gym and train a lot harder, hit some PBs, enjoy my training sessions a little bit more. My NEAT is going to go up as well. So non-exercise activity thermogenesis, basically the amount of calories you burn just doing daily tasks, making your bed, going to the shops, things like that. That's going to increase. You're going to have a hell of a lot of an easier time keeping weight off, like unwanted weight. So keeping fat off, getting your energy up, and then therefore your ability to increase calories a little bit quicker thereon is going to be even easier as well. So you can get your calories up quicker than what you usually would, as long as you're actually getting into the gym, training hard. And that's a massive mental component. Tell yourself that you've got the extra energy going in. Tell yourself that you have the extra calories going in so that you can actually go into your sessions and reap the rewards from that. Train really, really hard, put the calories to use, and you're going to have a much, much easier ride coming back out of things.
It might sound like that we're saying, from me just listening, it sounds a wee bit like we're saying just constantly be in a diet, which just seems like the way it's coming across. But we should touch on that when you finish, maybe it's your first ever cut or 10th cut, it's always something that was hard. You've done a lot of work and you need to acknowledge the fact that you've done something good. You know, you've achieved that goal, you've set that goal and it's been achieved. And having that period of transition where you get to enjoy yourself, reward yourself is absolutely necessary for, like, I would say all clients, just to have something that solidifies, I did a hard thing, I'm getting rewarded for it, but that reward doesn't last forever. You need to now set a new goal, work for something new, and having that new goal in place fairly soon is ideal. And especially if you are directionless for too long, maybe as soon as you finish, your goal now is to gain muscle. If you mess up that 4 week transition, the next 6 months of gaining could be a lot shorter into 3 months, depending on how much you did in that 4 weeks to ruin it. So we should probably move on to the aspect of like how things have their activity levels are completely different. So if you want to touch on that.
Do you mean like dropping things out?
Yeah. So like, would you say that transition shouldn't be as abrupt where they've went from doing 150 minutes cardio straight to zero?
Yeah. So you need to be aware that you have been operating to a very high standard. Like the variables that you would rinse in a dieting phase would be things like calorie deficit being the first one, but also your cardio, your steps, your general expenditure, and your general movement. So if you've been rinsing them and you've tailored them up over 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, they're going to be pretty high. You can't just go and drop all of them out completely. If you go from doing 13,000, 14,000 steps a day, 30 minutes, 40 minutes of cardio a day, and because your diet's done, all of a sudden you drop it down to zero cardio, you drop your steps back down to 10,000, and you eat a little bit more food, in that combination, you're going to put on too much weight too quickly, and you're going to undo a lot of the hard work, and you're not going to be very satisfied a couple of weeks later. So it's very important to have a tailored approach. And that's why a lot of people say that post-dieting phase is harder than the dieting phase, because you don't want to diet anymore. You don't want to be doing your cardio anymore. You don't want to be doing your steps anymore. But that's probably when it's even more important, so that you can actually hold on to the progress that you've made.
And you've been telling yourself for 12, 16 weeks that when this ends, that's the end of the cut. You know, that's the defining moment of your dieting phase. But in reality, it's a transition.
Yeah, so the hard work's not done. Realistically, that work should get easier, but whether or not you're mentally prepared for that, so you're not just dropping everything out. If you're mentally prepared that, okay, after this dieting phase, everything's not getting dropped out, things are going to get a little bit easier because I'm going to have a little bit less to do, and I'm maybe going to be able to have a little bit more food, you can quite easily prep yourself for that sort of post-dieting phase, and then therefore you know exactly what that's going to entail. If you don't know what that entails, and all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I thought the diet was over, why is my cardio still high? Why are my steps still high? Why haven't I got all this food? You're going to have a much harder ride at that. Much, much harder ride.
Should probably talk about how important routine is. Having done many cuts now, as well as you, I think we could both attest to the fact that when you're dieting, your routine is way better. Your productivity is way better. Your overall mental attitude to things is probably way better as well, because you're doing something hard, you're ticking boxes daily. Mentally, you're building a lot of fortitude from doing things that you don't want to do when motivation is low. And that routine is absolutely, like, I'd say, the cornerstone to how good your weeks are. So when you hit that end of diet phase, that routine is what got you to that end goal. That routine is what should be keeping you going into your next goal. So like you said, lowering targets as opposed to dropping them out completely keeps that routine in place, keeps you on that path of still having the structure that you had. It's just getting slightly reduced. Your recovery's going up. You're getting more food. You're starting to feel better. You're starting to gain weight.
And people find it easier to stay in that routine when they're going through a diet because they have that end goal, or they have that pain point, or they have that pressure that they need to achieve something by a certain date. So you need to set yourself another goal. What's the next goal when the diet finishes? Because right now, your motivation is the pain point of you don't want to go on holiday and look like a slob, or you don't want to show up to your wedding and you don't look great in your wedding dress or your suit, or literally whatever it might be. You want to show up to your photo shoot and you want to be shredded. Like, that's that motivation that's keeping you in that routine and in that structure that you're talking about right now. That's why you can wake up and you can go for your morning steps. That's why you can wake up and you can deal with being hungry, because you have that pressure there, and you know that by the end of the dieting phase, by the end of the cut, whatever it is, you're going to address that pressure and you're going to succeed through that. So when you're dieting period ends and that lack of direction, that goal disappears because you've ticked it off, now all of a sudden you don't have anything to hold yourself to that to hold yourself to stay accountable to. So you need to set a different goal. You need to think, right, okay, diet's done. I have got in the shape of my life. I've went on holiday. I've ticked it off. I looked great. I was happy with it. Or, diet's finished. I got married. I looked amazing in my dress. What's the next goal that you can actually use as pressure, that you can use for self accountability, so that you can stay in those good routines, so that you can stay, you can maintain those good habits. You need to set that direction. You need to set another goal. And that might come across as maybe a bit over the top for some people, like always setting that goal. But I'm not saying it has to be this crazy goal. Like
what would you say is like a good goal to have?
I think it depends for the person that you're working with and what they respond to well.
So let's say like the average person, they've just finished a cut for a holiday. They've came back from the holiday, maybe they're up 0.5 kilo, 1 kilo, and now they have no direction. They don't know where they're going now. What would you say 9 times out of 10 the next goal should be?
I would always look to either set a different type of goal, not maybe a visual goal, but something that's going to hold their visuals. So I'd maybe look to set a performance goal, or I'd maybe look to even set a body weight goal, but that's going to be dependent on who the person is. A lot of people don't tend to agree with like a body weight goal, but I would look at like a performance based goal, or switch the direction that you're going in slightly. So instead of thinking, okay, you've got down to this body weight and we're just going to look to maintain this, I don't want to see your body weight change too much and I just want you to somehow stay within that structure. I'd maybe look at someone and say, right, okay, you've ticked off that goal. Let's maybe have a look at your strength, and let's look at setting some numbers. Let's look to get as strong as we possibly can.
That's actually great, because during the cut, obviously, it's something you tend to focus less on. Me personally, like this week, exercises have just been removed that aren't going to move up anymore, and they're only going down, and that's just not great for the mentality. But yeah, I think that's great, because as soon as I finish the cut, it will be straight into, right, let's get these movements back in, let's run them back up, let's get them straight up to where they were as fast as possible.
And you can use the calories you can put those calories to good use now.
And then I can start comparing, right, peak bulk, I was on this many calories. I've just done this lift, 8 kilos lighter, half the calories I was on then. And I've did 2 extra reps, that's a huge, maybe just something that I would think about, but I think most people could probably relate to something like that.
But why you're going to be getting such like positive feedback from that as well is because it's creating that positive feedback loop. So your positive feedback loop through the diet is going to be seeing your body change. So when you're going through a diet, you see the visual changes a lot quicker. You see your body weight coming down. That's a positive feedback loop. Every morning you wake up, you're maybe a little bit lighter, or your weekly average across the week is a little bit lighter. There's positive feedback loop. You look at yourself in the mirror, you're seeing those positive visual changes. There's that positive feedback loop. When you finish a diet and you've got into the shape that you want to get into, like that positive feedback loop is different, because body weight's not going to be continuing to trend downwards. You've already achieved your best look. So now you need to switch that positive feedback loop to something else, which could be your performance. So now you're going into the gym, okay, you're getting a little bit stronger every week. That's now your positive feedback loop. You're getting your calories up a little bit more. That's your positive feedback loop. Okay, you can go out the weekend and you can enjoy a weekend with the boys, have a couple of drinks, and it doesn't actually throw your physique down the gutter.
Do you think this loops back to the fact that obviously during a cut, like you mentioned, they can see those changes very easily from week to week? Maybe not early on, but as you get on, maybe even 2-week gaps, the differences are absolutely noticeable. But when you're in a gaining phase, or you're coming out of diet and you're moving up, the muscle increases aren't as tangible as the fat loss changes. So it's not great to focus on. Like maybe we've just redone someone's plan. They want to grow bigger shoulders, and 2 weeks in, they're like, these shoulders look the same. It's like, right, well, it's not going to happen like that. I have to show you this week to 6 months from now, and then we'll see some slightly bigger shoulders, and that's just the way it is. It's not that tangible. And I think as two fellow humans, we like things that come thick and fast, and we like to see things happen very, very fast. And unfortunately, it's not the way it turns. But the thing that people should realize in what we're saying is that when you focus on the goals like strength, what do you think is going to happen if you focused on building your strength, building your form, building a really strong physique across 6 months? What do you think is going to happen to all these weak parts? They're going to grow. So And that is the tangible part, is your strength numbers and things like that. The things that you'd focus on that aren't as tangible as your look are going to be what builds that look in a long period of time.
Yeah, well, we know that building muscle is a much like slower process in terms of seeing the visual changes compared to like dropping body fat. You can see a lot quicker changes dropping body fat like week to week compared to putting muscle on. It's a much longer process, isn't it?
Yeah.
So trying to look at the variables that you can actually take some positive feedback from is super important. But why don't we go through a little bit more quick fire strategies for dealing with hunger? Yeah. Right. So it's kind of first one I could think of coming out of a diet here would be to continue on a meal plan. And most people are probably going to think, I have just finished my diet. Why do I want to continue on a meal plan? But it's literally for that structure. So I think this is important for any phase, but probably the most important post dieting, because that's when everything can go out the window. So all of a sudden, if you wake up and you're used to having a black coffee and fasting because you don't have loads of calories to play with, and you push your first meal back so that you have the same amount of food to eat in a shorter window, like if you just wake up post diet and think, well, I can eat whenever I want now, whatever I want, and you have your breakfast at 6 a.m, come 9, 8 in the morning, you're going to be really hungry again.
It's not like the calories just went up that much.
Yeah.
So probably maintaining a fast is great, because you should probably maintain that fast until it's a point where there's too much food to eat in a small window. Now I can start having the breakfasts.
Yeah, so that is literally my first point.
Well, as someone who's just came out of a diet phase, what are you doing right now?
Sticking to my meal plan.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm just sticking to the same foods, but having more of those foods. And then I'm just adding in some flexibility of stuff that I've been missing out on. So I'm not going to a full if it fits your macros approach, because I quickly just look to see how much rubbish I can pile into my day and still stay within my sort of like maintenance calories.
For those wondering what changes he means cream of rice to oats. These are the massive changes Keaton has made to his diet. Are you still fasting?
Oats is superb. Fasting, yeah, most mornings when I'm working, I'm fasting. At the weekends, what I'll do now is tend to have a little bit of a later rise, and I will have my pre-workout meal and I'll head pretty much to the gym first thing in the morning, but still waking up, having a coffee, cracking on with my work, getting as much work done as I can, and then moving on to meal one.
How crazy is that, everyone, that he hasn't changed his routine?
I know. Absolutely massive. But second one to deal with hunger is going to be increased protein intake. In my opinion, nothing crazy here, but it's literally just to help with satiety. So making sure that you are trying to take advantage of regular protein feedings so that you're not feeling as hungry across the day. So protein, as we know, is going to be a little bit more satiating than carbs and fats. So trying to bump that up a little bit across your day is going to help with that hunger. So literally just look to increase your protein sources, and with that I would look to increase your whole food sources as well, so that you can get more food volume across your day. So if you're just quickly swapping out your higher quality meals that you'd been having through your diet, because let's be honest, you're probably going to be rinsing your whole foods, your meats, your protein sources through that diet. If you go and swap them out for much more calorically dense, let's just say quote unquote bad foods, or your highly processed foods, you're going to be having much smaller portion sizes, and you're not going to be getting as much satisfaction from those meals. So I would say increase your protein intake as well post diet, at least until you get a bit more of a grip, a bit more of a control on your hunger, and then you could probably dip back down to baseline. Just make sure you're hitting adequate protein, and then running from there. But do you have any tips for dealing with hunger?
I would keep the busyness of your schedule, so that you don't have the time still to think about food. So if your cardio's 150 minutes down to 100, there's still a lot of cardio there to do in the week. If you've been doing 5 sessions of 30, do 5 sessions of 20, because then you still have to get out each day to do that cardio, or in the morning. And I think the majority of people that I've ever had do their cardio fasted, whether it is beneficial or not, they always feel a huge boost in their mental aptitude during the day, just from having that done first thing in the morning, releasing them endorphins. So that's something I would keep in as well. And I think that would help.
Sweet. Well, there's some tips to end the podcast off. And thank you for listening to episode 6 of the Lift Lounge. We'll sign off here, and we'll see you very shortly in the next one.
Very shortly.
Thanking you.